Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. In this episode, we're going to bake a whole herbed chicken. Now, it's a very easy recipe, but boy is it tasty. So come on, let's cook. So here's the basic ingredients for our herbed chicken. First of all, I have this oven stuffer roaster. Now, when you cook these oven stuffer roasters, preheat your oven to 375 and then cook the chicken for a half an hour per pound. That's a half an hour per pound up to 5 pounds and then 15 minutes per pound thereafter. Now ideally you got one of the chickens that has the automatic thermometer, and you just keep an eye on that. When it hits 180 degrees inside, the thermometer pops up and the chicken is done. And even better than that is if you have a thermometer, a meat thermometer that you can use to tell what the temperature is if you don't have one of these. And again, you're looking for the internal temperature to be at 180 degrees. The next thing we're going to use is a teaspoon of salt, 3 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoon of oregano, a tablespoon of rosemary, and a 1/4 cup of parsley. And I also have 3 garlic cloves that I'm going to crush. Or if you don't have a crusher, you can mince them. Now the garlic is optional. I do know that some people don't like garlic. So let me show you how to put this together. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is mince our herbs. So this parsley, it's not too twiggy, and yet I still don't want that in my chicken. So I'm just going to cut those stems off, the tougher stems, and just discard those. And then we're just left with very delicate stems. And now I'm just going to cut through the parsley, and I'm mincing it. I'm cutting it into very tiny pieces. Okay, so there's our 1/4 cup of minced parsley. Next up we have our rosemary. And rosemary, it can be a little twiggy, so down at this end where it's really stemmy, you can see the brown stem, I'm just peeling off the rosemary. And then up here it's very delicate, so I'm just going to cut right into that. And I'll show you how in one moment. Okay, now I'm just going to slice this into, or mince it into smaller pieces. Now rosemary can be kind of pine needle-ish, so I do try to cut it down as much as I can, because people will be eating these herbs on the chicken, because we're going to put the chicken under the skin, so that the flavor really infuses into the chicken meat. Okay. And now let's chop up our tablespoon of oregano. Now the oregano leaves should peel right off of here. And again, oregano has kind of a woody stem to it too. So what you can usually do, and this piece is just a little difficult, is you see the leaves are facing up that way? You just peel it back. Just grab the leaves and peel them back on the stem. And I wouldn't add too much more oregano than this. Oregano tends to be a very powerful flavor that will take over the dish if you add too much of it. This one was very stemmy. So I'm shooting for 1 tablespoon. I mean, I can really smell the oregano already. It's that strong. It's that potent. Okay. So there's our minced oregano. Now what we're going to do is crush our garlic. If you don't have one of these crushers, certainly just mince it. Mince the garlic really fine. And it should do just fine because it's going to be cooked down inside, under the chicken skin. And there is our garlic and herbs. Now again, if you don't like garlic, you don't have to add it. You can add more on the other hand than I did, or you can add less. It's totally up to you. Do it by taste. Now here's our teaspoon of salt. And our 3 teaspoons of butter. Now what I'm going to do is warm this up in the microwave. I'm going to melt the butter down and then stir the herbs into it. You can also do this in a saucepan. Just don't overcook and get the butter sizzling for very long, or it may start to burn. So just, if you melt it down in a pan, just melt it down to the point where you can stir in the herbs, get them a little bit hot, but then if you see any sizzling, just stop the process right there. Okay, now butter melts very fast in a microwave. It took less than a minute. So keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't sizzle away, and also make sure to put a paper towel over the bowl when you're putting it in the microwave, or you might have butter splattered all over the interior of your microwave. Now what I'm going to do is put the herb mixture under the skin. I don't worry as much about the legs or the wings because they're really not that meaty in these birds. I'll put a little bit on the outside of those, but I'm not going to worry about it the way I do this inside, these 2 cavities. So I'm using my fingers to open up the space between the skin and the chicken breast. There we go. And then I can either use my fingers or the spoon depending on how hot this herb mixture is, and I'm just going to spoon it underneath. There's 2 spoonfuls. And I'm just going to go in and spread it out a little bit. I have to work around that thermometer. And you can see that this is going to really coat the chicken breasts and flavor the chicken. Just the chicken in general, the thighs, the whole thing will get flavored by this. There we go. Adding a third of a spoonful to both sides. Put a little extra on that. And then what I want to do is just apply some of this to the outside of the skin. Gives it a nice color. It'll brown up nicely this way with the butter. I'm going to put some of that on the legs. Just wipe off a little bit off of the pan. There we go. Now this chicken is going in my oven for 2.5 hours, and then I'll check it. I'm going to keep an eye on that thermometer. Again, if you have a meat thermometer, that's a great idea. Otherwise, just use the time estimate. The only thing I have to caution you is just make sure that the bird is fully defrosted before you cook it and before you start using any of these times. You do not want to have any raw chicken when you're done cooking this. The other thing you can do too is if you notice that the outside is starting to brown too much, it's starting to burn actually, you can just put some foil over it for the finishing time, the finishing of the cooking time. So it's going in the oven for 2.5 hours. Let me show you how it looks on the inside. Now I did let this chicken, I did let it cool down for 15 minutes. It lets the juices settle down before you cut into it. Oh, look at that. So you can see the herbs have cooked right into the chicken. So I'm going to cut off a slice of this and see you in a moment. So congratulations, look at what you just did. You just made a delicious, tender, and moist herbed chicken. I mean, you're really going to like this. Now, if you want the printable recipe for this herb chicken, please go to my website, stepbystepchef.com, put herbed chicken in the search window, and this will pop up, and you can just print the recipe. You're also welcome to look at the dozens of other recipes I have there. I have printable recipes and videos for dozens of other delicious dishes. So my name is Larry Richardson, I'm your step-by-step chef, and I'll see you in the next edition.